Hello and welcome to session 5 of the Generation to Generation course, to the session looking at Timothy, Lois, Eunice and Paul. Let me read to you from Paul's first letter to Timothy, chapter 5. Do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. These words, written from an older Christian to a younger Christian, are a good reminder to us that although we often in this course are focused on Old Testament relationships, there are lots of examples in the New Testament of intergenerational relationships and examples of the benefits that those had. This session looks at the story of two people and those that influenced them and how they influenced each other. The first of those people is Paul, or Saul as he was originally known. The story of Saul's conversion is really well known, dramatic. But what's perhaps less well known is the role that an older man, Barnabas, played in his faith journey. Barnabas, whose real name was Joseph, but was called Barnabas by the disciples, meaning son of encouragement, was the Christian who got alongside and stood up for Paul in his early days, when people were still fearful of him. It was Barnabas who persuaded the disciples in Jerusalem that Paul really had converted to Christianity, and he really was someone to be trusted. And it was Barnabas who went out with Paul on his first missionary journey. It's a really good example of a relationship between an older man and a younger man and how it can benefit. One of the things that's very noticeable in the book of Acts is as Luke describes the story of that first missionary journey. We see how he starts off describing them as Barnabas and Paul. But as the narrative continues and as Paul takes prominence, he starts to describe them as Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas obviously realized that he needed to become less so that Paul could become more. And as we know, it was Paul who wrote many of our letters in the New Testament. It's a really good example of the humility of an older person, encouraging and allowing a younger person to take over and to gain prominence. The other person in this story is Timothy. We come across Timothy first on Paul's second missionary journey. Paul and Barnabas have split, and Paul has taken Silas with him. And they come to Lystra, and there they hear of this young man, this young Christian, all the Christians there hold in great esteem. We learn from the second of Paul's letters to Timothy that actually it was Lois, Timothy's grandmother, who first became a Christian. And then Eunice, Timothy's mother, and Timothy himself became Christians too. And Paul likes Timothy and understands his values and his skills and takes him on that missionary journey as they continue on. It's worth reminding ourselves, though, that although many of the examples of intergenerational relationships we're looking at in this course are between people who aren't in the same family, what an important role that faith within family has in developing each other's faith. Without Lois, without Eunice, would Timothy have come to faith? And we need to be really aware that that's such an important role they have with our family members to build up their faith. Timothy and Paul have an excellent relationship. In today's session, you'll look at a couple of the sections of the letters that Paul wrote to Timothy. But you can see from that Timothy helped Paul with his ministry and helped him work through what it was required of him. But equally, Paul did the same. He instructed Timothy and helped him to grow in faith. They both benefited from that relationship. And you can see the love through Paul's letters to Timothy that Paul has for Timothy, calling him a son. It reminds me of some of the older Christians in my life that have really encouraged me at different times. One who encouraged me in my faith early on. Another who came alongside me and suggested I might consider full-time Christian ministry. A third older Christian who taught me new ways of connecting with God and understanding him. Each of those people had a real influence on my faith. And as you do this session today, I'd encourage you to think, what role is God wanting me to play at the moment? Is it like Lois or Eunice, spreading faith within your family and encouraging those Christians who are there to grow in their faith? Is it like Paul, getting alongside a younger Christian and encouraging and developing? Or like Timothy, helping an older Christian in their ministry or in their faith and helping them too? As you read through the session today and as you discuss things, pray to God that you really will hear what he's saying to you about who he wants you to be today.